Welcome back to Briggs on Books, where we talk to authors from all over the world about their books, about their work, about their process, where you can get their books. And also we talk to people who help get books published or help edit or help move the process along. So if you're an author or a reader like me, watch the show because you're going to learn a lot because we have a lot of very cool and interesting people coming on the show. I think maybe one of the most interesting people we've had in a long time is up next, Bill McSciFi McCormick. Welcome, Bill.
Welcome. Thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful day to talk about books.
It is. And by the way, where are you right now?
I am in Chicago in my living room.
In your living room. Is it warm, cold?
Well, inside it's warm because we have heat and indoor water and plumbing and everything.
The whole thing.
Outside it's right around freezing.
Yeah, we read that big storm was sweeping the northeast. Did it hit you guys?
Nope. It went right over the top of us in the northern suburbs of Wisconsin and so on and headed out east. I know some of my friends in the South got caught up in it, and they got snow in Alabama, which they're not used to that.
Yeah, they don't get that. So if it had hit you a bunch of snow, what would you be doing today? Would you be shoveling snow, or do you just stay home on those days?
It depends. If I have something to do, I shovel, dig out the car, go about my merry business. And if I don't have anything to do, the heck with that. I'm staying home drinking cocoa.
Yeah, nice. Now, by the way, because we're international, you're international. Where were you born?
I was born in County Cork, Ireland.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the guy from Limerick who wrote Angela's Ashes, the Irish guy. Great book if anybody has not read it. Now, we're going to talk about your books, by the way. I'm going to pop them up on the screen for a second here. They're, what we say, dystopian sci-fi?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good phrase for it.
Yeah. And before we get to that, I want to get a little more to your background because you have an interesting background. You started writing for Chicago Rocker magazine, then you went into the radio business and even did a sports show. Do I have this right? For 10 or 12 years, but you never really got to talking about sports?
Yeah, it was on WBIG with a guy named Ryan Gatenby, and it was a show called The Big Wake Up Call. And I did it for a little over 12 years.
Wow.
It was a fun show. It was a lot of fun. But Ryan, he knew I had an encyclopedic knowledge about sports because I owned sports blogs and I'd been written about in the Sports Illustrated magazine and ESPN.com, the magazine, and so on and so forth. But he also knew I did a lot of work with pop culture and worked with musicians. I actually toured with James Brown as a business manager for a while. So he wanted to use my pop culture knowledge. So we would talk about everything, and we had some fun stuff. I mean, we got a hold of Gal Gadot and Margot Robbie long before their movies came out.
Yeah.
And just because I was like, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, come on by, we'll have fun. And we did that, and it worked really well for 12 years. It was really good.
And was all that in Chicago?
Yeah.
So that's a big market. So you could attract some big stars to the show, Margot Robbie, etc.
Yeah, well, I think what we attracted most is that we were really casual about it. Like Margot's case, for example, I did everything off air and then took all the information she gave me and made it a show about what was coming up, and I knew more than anybody else. And everybody, of course, called me a liar. And then the movie came out, and it was like dead on. Like Brian goes, I was sitting there with a checkbook, and everything you said came true. It's like,
nice.
And that happened a lot. So people kept listening.
So you start writing, or you always kind of wrote, I guess, since you're a magazine writer. But at some point, you started submitting stories.
Yeah, 2011, I was working for a record company. In 2009, it went under, and 2010, I just started. I was not in the best place, but 2011, I started dusting off a bunch of stuff I had for fiction, and I submitted it. And in summer of 2011, a company called Bewildering Stories, it's a really cool sci-fi blog and magazine, and I had sent them a thing called Vorbliss, and Don Webb, the executive or the editor there, sent me back a 2-page rejection letter explaining why he would be driven out of town on rails and hurt. Let's just say I have a nun with undulating cassava buns, buns that undulate like cassava melons. So he couldn't print that. But he asked if I had anything else, and I did. I had a story called And the Beat Goes Fut, about a disc jockey witnessing the apocalypse. And he liked that. He printed it. And turns out a lot of people I'd never met before liked it too. And that started my career.
Yeah. By the way, we're a show of people who are authors or they publish a book somehow. But why? There's a lot of places to submit stories and get published before you're a full-blown author, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's a thing. There's a magazine literally called Authors Published, and I'm religious into that thing. I check it out every week when it comes out. Not everything fits me, but not everything has to. It's not it's not authors published for Bill McCormick. It's authors published, and I happen to be an author. So we did this thing, and I did the bewildering stories, and I started getting into other things. And within 2 years, I was being published in international anthologies. I was in the British thing, Trumpocalypse, by 2016, and just a variety of different magazines, different things from all over the world. And it really helped when my novel came out. People were kind of aware of who I was, what I was about, and made my transition into being a full-blown author a soft landing as opposed to climbing out and doing it all myself.
Yeah, I think maybe that's good advice for a lot of the authors we have on the show, that maybe they weren't quite ready to be an author yet, that maybe they should have done some writing and publishing. And rejections are always helpful because it helps shape who you are and how you present yourself.
When I first started writing, even after Bewildering Stories, I used to keep all my rejection letters. And it was kind of like this weird voodoo thing I had. I'm going to prove you all wrong. And then I forget what it was. I think it was like after I got my third story published, I went, I don't have anything to prove to anybody.
Yeah.
I just have to prove it to myself that this stuff is good. So when I get rejection letters, I throw them away. I'll give you an example. I got one that said my story was a waste of 4,000 words. And it was called Breasts in Space. It was a short story, just satire of the young adult film industry. And I submitted it in a couple of different companies, and then Just a Minor Malfunction, which is a huge anthology. It goes all over the world, and it comes out like once a year, and it's a big thing for sci-fi authors. They accepted it. We just had to retitle it George because they didn't want to have breast in space on the banner. And so my book story that wasn't worth 4,000 words went out on an international anthology, won some awards, and was on an Amazon bestseller list for a while. So,
yeah, that's great. Now tell us about these books. I'm going to put the covers up again. Mm-hmm. I can't see very well. Bertie? Something Riders. Sorry.
Okay, The Brittle Riders.
Brittle Riders. My eyesight just is not working today. So The Brittle Riders. But that's a part of a box set, by the way.
Yeah, it's a trilogy. I wrote it to be a short story. It was going to be a novella. And the more I wrote it, the more the characters, in my head, the characters would argue with me. And so I kept adding things in, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And my wife, actually, she married me because I had those kind of conversations in my head, and I was relating them to her. And she's like, okay, anyone with a brain like that has to be worth keeping around. And we're now happily married. But, yeah, so I did all that. And my publisher, Asoth Chem, they started laughing because what was supposed to be a novella, I promised them 20,000 words, turned into 100,000 words with book one, which turned into another 100,000 words, which was book two, which turned into another 100,000 words, which was book three. And then we were done, but we're not. There's actually now a new series come out. It's the Brittle Riders in India called Goptri of the Mists. And books 1 and 2 of that are out, and book 3 is sitting on my computer getting finished.
Now, do some characters span across both series?
Very, very few. I wanted the Goptri of the Mists. I mean, I wanted it to be in the Brittle Riders universe, but I didn't want it to be nothing but the Brittle Riders, you know. Yeah. Some series, like the Honor Harrington series that Bain releases, is brilliant, but keeping the same character and all the time, and it really, really works. Doesn't work so well with what I'm doing. And you have, as an author, you have to make a decision. Do I keep doing the same thing here and here, or can I build it out somewhere else? And, excuse me. So this time I decided to build it out somewhere else, come up with new villains, and raise the stakes, and so on and so forth.
Interesting. So who's going to like this? Is this for sci-fi fans? Is it for teenagers, old people like me?
Well, anyone who likes sci-fi, anyone who likes dystopian. Yeah. If you flip the book over on, well, you can't do that if you just got the cover images. But if you flip the book over, a guy named Garrick Dion, who co-produced a little movie called Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, he wrote the back blurb for it.
Nice.
So if you like, it appeals to some horror fans. It appeals to some people who like really bleak fiction, but primarily sci-fi and dystopian. That's my main bucket. And we've got fan clubs now in England, India, Japan, and Africa, and Ghana.
Nice. Well, let me ask you this. We have on the screen, we have your web address, Bill, McSciFi.com, Twitter, and Instagram. What will people find at your website?
Well, my website, they'll find links to all my books and all my short stories. Anything that's available still out in public, they will find a link to it. The other thing they'll find is We had a tone reel done for the Little Riders because we're shopping at the film companies right now. It was done by a guy named Freddy Noriega from Mexico City. And brilliant. I mean, we've been trying to get some other people to do it, and nobody wanted to touch it because it's such an unusual book. I mean, it starts out with the death of every man, woman, and child on the planet, and then gets dark and weird. So there's no humans in it. You know, how do you make a tone reel?
Yeah.
When Freddie saw this whole thing, he went and he read up on it. And he went, not only am I going to make you a tone reel, I'm going to make you the best tone reel you've ever seen in life.
Nice.
And so far, according to everybody who's read it, seen it, yes, it is. It's violent, hyper violent. It's got a little chimeric nudity in it, but it's fun. And so if you go to my website, you'll get to see that. You'll get to see all the books. You'll see all the comic books I write. I write for a bunch of different comic book companies around the country. Short stories and links to anthologies are up there. My bio that you've been referencing is up there. You can contact me. I'm real easy to deal with. I'm real easy to find. So, yeah, come on by.
I love it when I could reach an author and just ask some questions while I'm reading. However, I always find out when I get to the end of the book, I usually have my questions answered anyway, but it's fun to be able to pop a question in here and there. Bill, McSciFi, McCormick, we're running out of time. Any last thoughts you want our viewers to know?
No, not really. I mean, we've pretty much covered all the ground here. I work for a bunch of different publishers, so I'm not self-published. That's the good news because that means everything gets edited before I put it online.
Yeah.
But I love what I do, and right now
That's
it's
great.
all that I do. I don't have to go punch a clock for a 9 to 5. I just write books, and people buy books. And there is one thing you can get at my website that's interesting. You can actually buy merchandise. We set up a deal with a company so that you can get T-shirts, hats, robes, all sorts of stuff.
Nice. What? By the way, I wanted to mention this. We've talked about the current series and another series, but you have a lot of other books out there?
Not as far as novels go, no. I've got Splice, Hit Technology, which came out on Watchdog Entertainment. And I just got the brand new one out called Stuff About Things, which is a collection of short stories, anthologies, and essays that I've written through the years.
Nice.
And my wife says it's the, what does she call it? The gateway drug to McSci-Fi. So if you don't want to dive into a novel, you can dive into that and get everything there.
Well, I'm sure if somebody will visit your website, BillMcSciFi.com, they can find out a lot that we didn't get to talk about here. So we look forward to that. Oh, one last question. Your favorite tequila?
Jose Cuervo Silver.
Silver tequila. All right, Bill. Thank you so much. I want to have you back again and again. You're one of the most interesting guests we've ever had. So,
well, I got new books coming out in about 6 months, so I'm happy to do it.
all right, good. We'll keep in touch with you. We'll be back with more Briggs on Books right after this.